What's going on, gentlemen? Hope everyone's having a fantastic Monday. I know I am, getting some good work done here. Today's video is going to be legitimately short this time. I know I say that every single video and then they end up rambling on to 10-15 minutes in length. So this one, going to keep it under 5. Just want to address one thing. I know that my video quality isn't the best. I'm filming on my Samsung Galaxy S10, looking to upgrade to the Apple suite of both computers and phones sometime before the end of the year. So planning on getting the iPhone 14 Pro, I think, where it's got just some crazy camera specs. Some of the other creators that I follow on YouTube have been recommending it, so gonna be upgrading to that. Probably won't mess around with an actual DSLR type camera until later on, just because it's way easier to whip a smartphone out and film, and right now that's what I need, is just something easy. And you can still create really good stuff on a smartphone, and once I go to not doing a video every single day, I'll be able to kind of up my production level and editing level a little bit. Right now it's the game of volume. So just like a support by fire, achieving fire superiority just through sheer volume of fire. Hopefully the audio quality in last night's video was pretty good. I'm using my new mic setup, so this should end up being a little better sounding than my other holding my camera and filming videos. So I'm going to talk about the what took second place in that poll yesterday, and it was like how I knew how I knew being in Ranger Regiment was for me. And oddly enough, this realization came way after the fact of me joining and actually making it to Ranger Regiment. It was during a period of self-reflection during 2020, where I realized, looking back at my childhood and looking at it, these couple experiences that I'll talk about here in a second, that added up to where I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense as to as to why I'm doing this job. The first one, these are way back childhood memories. So I was living in Utah. I was born in Utah, and then I lived in California for about 9 years, and then I moved back to Utah. But during, I think I was 3 or 4 at the time, and me and my neighborhood friend, I think it was his name is Brock. We had these little plastic M16s that made noise when you pulled the trigger, and I remember distinctly several days where we'd climb on to the roof of his backyard jungle gym, this little hut or something, and it overlooked this road. And this was in the early 2000s, I think, pre 9/11. So and we'd sit up on top of this thing and pretend to shoot at cars driving by on the road. My mom distinctly didn't want us to have any kind of toy firearms while we were growing up initially. She wouldn't let us have any kind of gun toys until me and my brother started biting our toast into gun shapes and using plastic golf clubs to imitate rifles. And then she kind of gave up, and then we kind of stocked up on Nerf guns and what have you, and then eventually got into airsoft. But so there's that story. And then another story that is just a very vague memory of mine was our backyard in Utah was backed up to this larger property in this field. Shoot, I haven't been looking at the camera, sorry. This larger property, and it was very wooded and not developed. This was Utah Valley before it really started getting more suburbanized, so there was still large tracts of farmland and what have you. And there was a gap in our fence, and I led the rest of the neighborhood boys. I think there was 3 or 4 of us on a recon mission or raid into the neighbor's larger backyard, and we were sneaking around, and we got all the way up to this pond that they had, and we were being absolute little shits. There was this statue of, I think, a frog or something that was on the edge of this pond, and I remember it was me and one of these little kids who decided to chuck it into the pond and be dicks, and then we exfilled without any problems. Another story comes a little bit later, and this was when I was teenage, I want to say, and into airsoft. I was living in California at the time, and our church group went up for a camp out around, I think it was Shaver Lake in California. And there was a different church group that we were associated with that was also doing a fathers and sons style camp out. And they were on the other side of the lake. We could see their camp from where our camp was. And I remember packing my M4 airsoft gun on this trip and like some web gear. I had a old Alice web belt, and it was me and I think 2 or 3 of my my other scout homies. And I convinced them, like, hey, let's go raid our friends across the lake. So we got up early the next morning after the night of camping, and we reconnoitered and what's the word for it? Like cloverleafed around to their side of the lake, snuck into their camp undetected, and then found where our buddy's tent was and ambushed them and shot them up with the airsoft guns. And then we made it all the way back. Purely no map, just straight going off of rough terrain association and just kind of guessing. And it ended up working out. It was a fun day. But just looking back, like I was thinking of these instances, and I'm like, man, like I kind of always had this in me, like this desire to fight and to go out into the woods and do cool stuff with my friends. And you know, I was sitting there in 2020 as a ranger, like thinking back on this. I'm like, yeah, that all really makes sense. Like I can see why I'm doing the job that I'm doing right now. So just a little, you know, story time for y'all today, and hope y'all enjoyed it. Podcast tomorrow, gonna figure out what I'm talking about. I'm not sure what I'm gonna talk about just yet, but there'll definitely be some kind of ranger topics in there. I know people have been asking about gear, and people have been asking about like older dudes in regiment. So like a lot of little topics that don't really warrant their full video. Like I don't know enough to talk about. I could probably do a full video on gear, honestly, but I'll try and answer some of like the shorter questions that I haven't gotten to in the comments or that keep coming up. And I'll address those tomorrow, and then some other stuff. But big plans in the works. I've got planning on the first couple guests sometime in October, and then I've got a spot on another podcast in November. I'm not gonna say too much about that just yet. But thanks for all watching. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Instagram, Zach Allred Official, or at Rockwell Designs Actual. Go check out my brand. I've got a restock of Woodland AK rigs this Friday on rockwell-designs.com. Go sign up for that email list. That's the best way and easiest way to support me right now. Is I've got merch, I've got gear, all handmade by me. So go check it out. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.